Welcome to Canadian Innovators, the show that celebrates innovation, entrepreneurs, and the Canadian spirit. I'm Jocelyn Bamford, and every week we introduce a new entrepreneur or expert on the economy to tell their stories and unpack the challenges of keeping jobs in Canada, as well as discuss potential solutions for job growth and prosperity. Ontario is slowly coming out of a lockdown of over 2 years of a roller coaster ride dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Small and medium businesses have borne the brunt of these lockdowns. Fortunately, manufacturing was able to keep rolling as an essential service. However, Ontario has a steep hill to climb, and much of Doug Ford's first term was spent dealing with this crisis. What lies ahead for the economy in general and manufacturing specifically? Joining us to discuss today is Victor Fedeli, the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation, and Trade, and one of my favorite ministers. Victor Fedeli is a lifelong entrepreneur, successful business person, author, philanthropist, and former two-term mayor of North Bay. Welcome to the program, Minister Fedeli.
Jocelyn, it's a real treat to be here and to see you again.
Minister Fedeli, tell our viewers just a brief overview of your business experience for those who have not heard your story.
Well, I'll be very brief about it. I opened a fully accredited marketing firm in 1978, so I was very young entrepreneur. And very quickly, it became quite a successful firm. We did business all over the world, and I was able to sell the firm in 1992. And today it was in North Bay, Ontario, my hometown. And today there are 3 or 4 different firms that all have my former employees running various segments of it. And so it's still, I go and visit them. The people that I hired in the 70s and 80s are still there, and they're all very successful companies. And it was nice to work with them. And I took 11 years off, traveled to about 100 countries. And when SARS broke out, my wife said something about, I think you better not travel for a little while. And I guess I did stay home for a short while, got under her skin. She suggested I run for mayor of North Bay, which I did. I wrote a plan in 2003 called 2020 Vision, where I saw the city in the year 2020 and a plan how to get there. Got elected with 75% majority. And we initiated that plan, brought our credit rating up 5 Moody's ratings, brought the restored prosperity, restored wealth to the community, and solvency to the city. And then I ran as MPP in 2011, and this is where I've been.
Well, that has served you well to be our Minister of Economic Development. So in this segment, I want to focus on trade. You and the Premier have put together the Premier's Council on Trade. Tell us about this and what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, it's a really good opportunity for the Premier's Council to be able to advocate and engage with all of the industry partners right across the U.S. and especially around the Great Lakes states, where we have such a deep supply chain. We're absolutely integrated. And so it's a good opportunity to step in right now as these measures are being debated in the U.S. Congress and the U.S. Senate with the electric vehicle battery restrictions as an example, or softwood lumber, or dairy, green peppers, steel. All of these things are complicated. So this Premier's Council is a group of experts in their fields who are helping guide us through this.
Well, I think that's going to be great. It's going to absolutely help us with Buy America and the Buy America plan, which is in effect shutting out many manufacturers of competition where there's U.S. dollars, government-funded dollars going in. Can you tell us how this is going to help us compete with that Buy America program?
Yeah. I mean, we see this disruption that's here because of the protectionist measures that you spoke about a second ago. And this will give us an opportunity to remind the Americans, 9 million of you wake up every single morning just to make products to ship to Canada. 300,000 of you in Ohio alone wake up every morning to ship products to Canada. You need us. We're integrated. We want to remind them that 19 of the states we're their number 1 trading partner. We're the number 2 trading partner to 9 more. So that's the kind of thing that our group will have that opportunity to be a little more bold than elected officials can be.
So we're gonna go to break, and we're gonna talk about it more on the other side. Welcome back. Today, I'm speaking with Victor Fedeli, the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. Minister, manufacturing is the lifeblood of the economy, and we have seen how vulnerable Canada was during the pandemic when we didn't have manufacturing here of gowns, gloves, ventilators. And what are you going to do to bring back manufacturing to make sure that Canada is safe?
Well, great question, Jocelyn. I'm not a very political person, but I will say the previous government for 15 years really gave up on manufacturing. They did everything in their power. In fact, if you read their last economic report, it said 6 times, we really want to move away from manufacturing. We don't believe in that anymore. Sergio Marchionne, the former, when he was alive, of course, was the chairman and president, CEO of Fiat Chrysler, as it was then called, said to the then Premier Wynne, you have made, I'm paraphrasing, you have made Ontario the most expensive jurisdiction in North America in which to do business. So when we got elected, Premier Ford said, here's what we're doing. We're reducing the cost of doing business, and we're going to show people we're open for business. So we have cut the cost of your WSIB premiums by more than 50%. That's a $2.2 billion savings every single year for business. We put in an accelerated capital cost allowance, which means that you can write off your new equipment in year. That's $1 billion a year in savings. Fast forward through about $400 million worth of red tape reductions. Last year, we lowered the cost of industrial and commercial energy rates to 14 and 16%. We also reduced the cost of your local, the provincial share of your local property taxes by $450 million. Add it all together, that's $7 billion in savings every year. That was the start. That was why we saw 300,000 new jobs created in Ontario pre-COVID. And here's an interesting stat, Jocelyn. Today, there are 160,000 more people working in Ontario than there were when COVID began. In fact, 30,000 of them work in manufacturing.
And that is great. We need to bring back manufacturing, and we thank you for your support in that area. Supply chain is an issue that everyone is discussing, from empty shelves to waiting for parts. What can the government do to help shore up our supply chain?
Well, we can start making things here, and that's why we put a $50 million Ontario Together fund out there. It got really gobbled up nicely and very quickly, and we've put a second $50 million out there now. So I'll give you some examples where when COVID first hit, as you correctly said, very, very little, if any, PPE was actually being manufactured in Ontario. We gave up on it and sent it all offshore. Today, 74% of all PPE purchased by the province of Ontario is now made in Canada and predominantly made in Ontario. Ventilator parts, masks, gowns, face shields, the ethyl alcohol for hand sanitizer, the sanitizer itself, the wipes, all being made here in Ontario now to help fill the shelves, at least with the PPE. And we have many other programs now to reshore manufacturing here in Ontario.
And that's all great. Now, speaking of bringing back manufacturing, the Ontario government did assist the Class B manufacturers. Those are the smaller manufacturers that were bearing the brunt of the global adjustment and made it really uncompetitive to operate here. And we really appreciate that. But we're still somewhat uncompetitive in affordable energy. So in about a minute that we have left of this segment, what can you do to help us be more competitive in this area?
So you'll hear more about energy from the Energy Minister, Todd Smith. I'll leave that in his expertise as we continue to do everything we can to reduce the cost of power in Ontario, given the legacy of what we inherited and the contracts that were signed by the previous government. But I will say that our job is to continue to reduce the cost of doing business. We've done it $7 billion already. Every day we have more and more and more plans to reduce the cost of doing business and to increase that $7 billion even higher through reduction of red tape and many other programs, Joss.
Well, all great stuff and all very much needed as we continue to bring manufacturing back. So we're going to go to commercial shortly. And when we get back, we're going to hear more about the plans for the economics prosperity of Ontario. When we get back, we're talking to Minister Victor Fedeli, and you're watching Canadian Innovators on the Forum News Network. Welcome back. My guest today is Victor Fedeli, the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation, and Trade. Let's talk about your recent announcement, the province's Driving to Prosperity plan for future of Ontario automotive sector, and how this will play in Ontario's economic recovery from the pandemic. Can you tell us about this program? It's very exciting.
It is a very exciting program, Jocelyn. Thank you. It started with the Premier looking at the sorry state of auto manufacturing in Ontario, and we were getting some very concerning news, and that's why we did what we did in lowering the cost of doing business. And if you talk to General Motors or any of the five original equipment manufacturers, they will all tell you the fact that Ontario lowered the cost of business is why they're back, why GM reopened in Oshawa. And in fact, just recently now has put a second shift on in Oshawa. Imagine the excitement of that happening. So it was all about lowering the costs and then going out and saying to them, we're with you. We're ready to invest. We understand that we need to invest in electric vehicles. We're going to be pushing on the electric vehicle battery manufacturing. That ties in Northern Ontario now as for the first time in the auto sector in 120 years because of the critical minerals that are there that are going to be required for battery manufacturing. So the North, all of Ontario now is part of it. We're looking at the autonomous and connected vehicles. So in Ottawa and in Markham and in Toronto and other areas, KW, we've got companies looking at that segment of innovation in autonomous vehicles. And we know that the parts manufacturers need to be making parts of the future into the EV sector. And add to that, green steel that's made without coal, makes Ontario perfectly suited for this entire reframing of the auto sector in Ontario.
All great stuff. So how are you going to ensure that small and medium-sized manufacturers and the supply chain will be involved in this program and not just the big guys?
Yeah, so when you look at one of the programs we have, OAMP it's called, and it's to help the parts manufacturers. We are trying to establish and support a full battery supply chain ecosystem, and that means creating domestic battery ecosystem with a battery plant, as well as all of the parts manufacturers. So we have a program that offers up to $100,000 in assistance and matching funding for a lot of the smaller parts manufacturers. We continue to have our regional development programs like the Southwestern Development Fund, where so many auto parts manufacturers took advantage of that government investment to assist them. We really are trying to innovate at every stage of development, from the local creation, the design, the production, new product adoption, everything in the auto sector that will help Ontario compete globally, but also help these small parts manufacturers as well.
Now, for our entrepreneurs that are watching today, how do they get involved in that OM program?
Well, they can certainly contact us at the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. They can talk to the Parts Manufacturers Association. There are many, the tool, die, and mold makers. All of their associations are very familiar with us. The Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters, who have the Ontario Made program, which is supporting companies and marketing companies who are making products in Ontario. And then we've got a real concierge service where we know that we have about 50 free trade deals around the world, and we're helping these small companies export. When you think of the United States, it's not just our only market. We can export tariff-free battery, electric vehicle batteries and parts to companies in countries in Europe, countries in Asia, all through our trade deals. We have 50 trade deals. We're the only country, we're the only G7 country in the world that has this.
So all great stuff. Automotive is really important to Ontario. And in the minute we have left, I'd love you to talk about outside of the automotive. How can we shore up manufacturing that's just not exclusively related to the automotive sector?
Well, think about here in Ontario. So yes, we are the number 2 auto maker in all of North America. We're also the number 2 IT cluster in all of North America. We're the second largest financial hub. We're the second largest center for food processing in North America. So we have a tremendous amount of programs that can assist all of these companies, advance manufacturing. We have a brand new program to support advanced manufacturers as well.
So I'm going to stop you there, Minister, because we're pressed for time. We're going to be right back after this commercial. Welcome back. We're talking with Minister Vic Fedeli from the Ministry of Economic Job Growth and Trade. Minister, in this segment, I went to the Coalition of Concerned Manufacturers and Business of Canada members, and I asked them to come up with some questions for you. So are you ready? I'm putting you on the hot seat now.
Always ready, Josh.
Okay, question 1 comes from Shelley Bacon of Northern Cables, and he wants to know what Ontario will do with electrical prices if legislation is passed for electrical heat only in new homes and businesses.
Yeah, I've toured their plant, by the way, and know the fun they have with the across the border in the States with the big signs that say, "Come on over here, we'll give you cheap hydro." Look, what I will say again, I will leave more of that into the hands of the energy minister, but I will say, we are doing everything we can to continue to lower the cost of doing business. And in some cases, we will make up for it in the apples where we don't in the oranges.
Okay, great. Our next question comes from Bob Lyman. And he asks, as the Ontario government decides what position to take on future changes to the internal trade agreements, that's the interprovincial trade agreements, will you give small to medium-sized company a seat at the table and a chance to be heard in some way?
Yeah, I think that's a great approach. The Premier and I talked just yesterday about interprovincial trade, and he asked me to bring him up to date on the file because the other premiers are really starting to see where Ontario is on that because we're so far ahead. The Premier, I asked the Premier when I first took this job, are we free traders? And his answer was absolutely. And so you can see that Ontario is leading in the free trade, interprovincial trade discussions. And so, yes, I think there's a huge seat at the table.
We want to be able to buy wine from BC is what people are telling me.
I've told the people in BC, in Ontario, you can't worry. BC's not going to ship, $8 bottle of wine here. You've got to be able to understand you're going to have a huge market to ship to as well. You can't be afraid of this competition. And
Ontario wine's the best in the world. I'm telling you, if you haven't had a chance to enjoy them, they are wonderful. So
Absolutely.
the next question comes from Byron Nelson, the CEO of Leyland Industries, and he starts with a recommendation. He was asking if you could take a portion of the revenue that the province collects from manufacturer and run some ads about our domestic manufacturing capabilities and what's made in here, a kind of made in Canada products education plan. And his question for you is, can the province make our manufacturers more competitive, both in domestic and the international markets?
Well, Byron, you should go on my Twitter account then at whatever it is, Victor at Fedeli or Victor Fedeli, because every single day we show products that are made in Ontario. And in fact, we are just launching, I'm going to sneak it out here right now, we're just launching a new series of Ontario-made vignettes that show Ontario products, and it's in conjunction with Canadian manufacturers and exporters. We put $500,000 into the promotion of Ontario Made. We put another $1 million into it. I'll just take a second, Joss. The premier's example is, look, if you're at a home hardware and you're buying a barbecue and you see the Napoleon barbecue made in a Barrie, you see the Broil King barbecue made in KW, and you see the Weber made in Chicago, all things being equal, pick up the dang barbecue that's made in Ontario and support your friends and neighbors.
I can get behind that. Absolutely. Our next question comes from John Galt, CEO of Husky Injection Moldings. And he asks, many of us in business believe that the full impact of COVID policy has not yet been experienced. And this is at a time where Ontario citizens are experiencing unprecedented inflation and businesses are being driven out of Canada. What will your office do to turn the situation around for Ontario citizens?
Well, I'm going to say the same thing here that I've said all along. We continue to lower the cost of doing business. We believe that's the best thing the government can do, is pull all the levers that we can. So you've seen no tax increases since we got elected. All of the tax increases that were to go in place by the previous government, we did not implement them on that January 1 back in 2019. So we're looking for more ideas from John and others on how we can reduce red tape. And we've saved $400 million so far, and there's a long way to go. We'll do anything you need.
Okay, wonderful answers to our members' questions. We appreciate so much the insights on the economy and growth for Ontario. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks to my guest, Minister of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Victor Fedeli. I'm Jocelyn Bamford. Thank you for watching Canadian Innovators.